Hi everyone, it's Gothic Layman here. So today I'm going to try and explain how I've seen the Gothic subculture culturally change throughout the different generations. So of course we know, without getting into detail of the history of Goth too much and the Gothic term and stuff, how it started off was, of course, the Gothic new music movement, which was an off-branch of post-punk, being less political and more playing up the dark ambience and the darker feel to the music. And then, people just wanted to express themselves from their love of their music idols, like who they idolized, and the style of music they wanted. People just wanted to express their love of that inside and out with their style. But of course, with anything that's new and different, the world didn't really take to it at all. I don't think the world has fully taken to it ever. It's still a very taboo, underground kind of thing. Goths didn't look to like we've got the internet and the media and the TV to keep the culture alive. They looked at clubs or get-togethers or other goths to build a community spirit and to just, have other goths that they could get along with. Later on, the darker aesthetics and the darker feel came to the Gothic style and the Gothic way of life, people expressing their darker interests inside and out with their love of Edgar Allan Poe or H.P. Lovecraft and all that. But Goths at the beginning got death threats, they got things thrown at them, they got yelled out from cars, people would stop them on the streets to abuse them because they were strange and different. And that's the unfortunate truth of what happened to Goths at the beginning culturally. It was just not accepted. People did not like the new expression, which there was nothing wrong with the new expression. It's just the world didn't quite take to it. And of course, when you don't take to something that's new and strange, other things come into effect, like now people started thinking, and the media started thinking, that Goths was a satanic, pagan, cult-related things, and anything that was dark in the media would get chucked as it was Gothic. So, example was that murders in the school with a kid, and they called it Gothic murders. There was also in Europe, there was this whole bunch of satanic type ritual murders, and they called that the pagan, like the pentagram murders. That's the one, the pentagram murders. And all that is I think about 12 murders that were satanic related. And this is where the media kind of got very, oh my god, everything dark related is Gothic, it's wrong. And of course parents then in tune joined in with the media strife, and then it got a bit harder for people to express themselves Gothic, and it was very hard. So then the media, of course, looked to people like Marilyn Manson and Vautier and others as ambassadors to the Gothic culture to try and, understand it a little better. I don't know if it worked or didn't, because people still view the culture, like Gothic culturally, as not quite accepted or taboo. I think around the 90s to the 2000s, people's attitudes started to change a little bit. Unfortunately for Sophie Lancaster's murder, made people have a tiny bit of a different light on the Gothic culture and started to view the culture a little differently. And we still support her to this day. There's I think it's London, it's illegal to do bullying to goths, because one thing that's still established throughout culture is people still don't understand goths and still put us down or say horrible things to a Gothic person they don't understand. Around the 2000s and the 90s, the Gothic culture was very vicious, I would have to say. There was this big hiatus of you had to have an elitist attitude to fit in. So around the 2000s, Goths were very hung up on the elitist mindset because websites were starting to come into play like Vampire Freaks and other ones, and Goth or Not, or these other horrible websites, because the Gothic world started to hit the internet. So it was kind of like a dog-eat-dog world for a little while there. People were very hung up on the elitist attitude and having, you've got to be under those Gothic categories to fit in with, the Gothic stereotype or the Gothic set. To basically get your stamp in the Gothic community, you had to follow those guidelines. Then little pictures come out from DeviantArt with Lolita Goth and Gothic Victorian and Mopey Goth and Emo Goth, and then that created a very different understanding to people. Some Goths saw it as a bit of a joke, sort of, they were cute and funny. Then those things started to become very serious in the Gothic world, and people actually started putting themselves in those brackets of style. And that's where the Gothic community went a bit strange as well, because now we were putting everyone in branches, with just first present looks. It was the fact that those little pictures become very serious in the Gothic subculture. Later on, probably now, how I see how much the Gothic subculture has changed, I think the new Goths are very lucky. You come into the culture without the stigma of being Goth. It's a bit more accepted now, and a lot more of elder Goth types are taking the younger ones under their wings because of how much they had to deal with to get to where they are, and just that personal understanding of, putting yourself in their shoes. So I think the new generation of Goths are very fortunate and very lucky, because they don't really have to fight their way in or put their foot down and say, hey, this is who I am. It's more accepting and understanding to be Gothic, and also to have an outside interests that are not quite Gothic, maybe a bit more alternative sort of lifestyle is still okay. And now that we have like YouTube and community-based spirit, it's become a lot easier for Goths to feel okay to be Goths. Like, we still get the ridiculing and the unsure looks, but we also get compliments, where before it used to be death threats. People will compliment a Goth for their style, their shoes, the corsets and everything. So it's very different culture now to what it used to be. Some people, like, society thinks it's really cool, the fashion's awesome, the person's really interesting and stylish, but there's still some that are hung up that we're evil, we're satanic related. But because there's more Gothic references in the world, I guess we've eased ourselves into society a little better, being like vampires and werewolves are a bit more, mainstream. When they used to be, zombies are very mainstream. Horror movies are very mainstream. Some of the music's been mainstreamed, like The Cure and Murder Dolls have come into the mainstream world. Music artists and movies use Gothic influences and, that Gothic feel to their work. So it's a lot more accepted in a way now than it used to be. Sometimes it's still not accepted. There are still cases where it's still strange and not quite. People are still a bit like, it away, sort of thing. And I think now goths more focus on the labels of baby bat or elder goth a little bit too much than they should, where, you know, automatically someone that doesn't quite know everything about the Gothic subculture gets chucked in that baby bat sort of area, where goths that are looked at to be an older age or lived the Gothic, you know, from the beginning are seen elder goths. My idea of elder goth's not quite that way. I don't think elder goth is defined by their person's age or if they've lived the Gothic world like at the beginning, because there are older people or older goths that still don't know quite as much information as someone young. Young people can still teach the older people new and interesting things. I think an elder goth is defined by your maturity, how you've matured as a person or how you've matured as your Gothic self per se. That's how I view an elder goth, not by the age but how the person has matured and evolved by their style, how they talk, and just being more accepting of things. That's how I see an elder goth. It's not an age thing. I think it's just a maturity thing as a Gothic person in a whole. But this is my best way of explaining how culturally the Gothic subculture has changed. We've created more of a community-based spirit rather than a more taboo, elitist ideas. Please tell me what you think. Maybe you've got a more better answer than me. Maybe you can go a bit more in depth because I have missed a lot of chunks out of how culturally it's changed. I'm quite aware, but if I was to keep going back, re-explaining things, it would just drag out a bit more. So I'd love to hear comments, messages, whatever. I'd love to hear what people think of my ideas and my thoughts, really. Thank you for watching.